Welcome to Book Me Podcast, sponsored by Nimbus Publishing. I'm Lindsay Glode-Rainingbird. Join me as we journey through contemporary Canadian literature, reading as much as we can and chatting with authors, illustrators, and other bookish folk, celebrating our dynamic, diverse, and vibrant national literary scene as we go. So grab a snack, get cozy, break that binding, dog-ear those pages. Let's dig into it. Today, I'm joined by my great friend and personal inspiration, Thorne. She's a musician, filmmaker, arts critic, and self-proclaimed recovering journalist who can now add author and essayist to that list. Her debut book, Low Road Forever, is a love letter to the music, movies, people, and fixations that made a rural Nova Scotian teen the creative, opinionated feminist she is today. The things that formed her, move her, spark joy, piss her off, things that keep her up in the middle of the night. Teeming with her signature wit, humor, surprising vulnerability, and a little bit of self-righteous rage, Low Road Forever is everything I could have wanted in a book of personal essays. I absolutely loved it, and I know you will too. Welcome to the podcast, Tara.
Thank you, Lindsay. And by the way, I already know I'm going to cry because I feel safe with you. Do people know we're ex-work wives?
No, they don't know anything yet. We just started. So, full disclosure, Tara and I go way back to the coast.
Yeah, and then you left. And so now I have an ex-wife, but not for real, just like an ex-work wife.
Yeah.
Yeah, so like there's no settlement. I don't pay you anything.
Could
no
you, though?
I wish someone needs to pay me.
Maybe I should pay you.
Yeah.
I left. I'll pay you. Okay, let's just get right into this. In your intro, you talk about the snarky persona you've cultivated over the years and the disconnect that facade has had from the real you. How much of this book is persona and how much is the real you?
Oh, it's so much real me. That's why it's really scary. I made a movie this year, too. And the thing about the movie, I don't pretend that the lead is not a stand-in for me. So it's a movie about a lesbian vigilante who beats up abusive hipster men at night, i.e. my fantasy.
The dream.
Yeah. But you can't do that. But
can't you? No, you can't.
Well,
you can't do that.
It's dangerous. But you can make a movie about it. And so, I always find it amusing when people write things based on their lives, and it's clearly based on their lives, and they go, but it's fiction. And I'm like, okay, but I know you. And I think there's two reasons they do that. One, because I think there's this idea that fiction has to be something you've wholly made up, and otherwise it's not artistic enough. So if you're taking it from your own life, you're not as much of an artist. I think that's it's not true, but I think that's what people think. And the other thing is to create distance. It's like, yes, this actually is, because no one makes art because it's not personal. I mean, they shouldn't be. So the more distance you can put between yourself and the artistic product is protective. So at the movie, I have, we got $200,000, a lot of money in a bag on the ground. Not a lot of money to make a movie, but it's a lot of money. And a team of 25 people. And they made this movie happen.
This movie is Compulsive.
It's called Compulsive, yeah. It's on the festival circuit now. And even when I make a record with dance movie, that's very personal to me too. I write all the songs. I don't care about the music in a weird way. Like, I'm just trying to get thoughts out. However, with this, there's no distance. And my editor, Steph Demet, personal hero, and most of the reason I did this, before we submitted the book, she said, I want you to consider every person you've written about and how they come off and how they're going to perceive it. I'm not saying you need to change anything, but you need to think about it. And I wish someone had said that to me. This is what she said. I wish someone had said that to me before I wrote my first book. And I said, okay. And there are things in there that I considered taking out because they were too personal or because it was about someone else. And someone lives in your life with you. They don't ask to be in a book later.
Everything is copy.
Yeah. R.I.P. Nora Ephron. And I didn't take anything out because I thought, well, then it's not authentic. And then what's the point? I can write you my little movie and music essays, but the stuff that's personal is ultimately the reason that people are going to connect to you as a person. So the internet persona, the thing that got me fired from CBC.
We'll get to that.
Yeah. Remains separate, but is not this. And that's why I feel like shit and can't sleep And I'm sitting here, we're here on publication day. And
Happy publication day.
My nerves are racked.
Because it was not an easy book for you to write. Tell me about that.
Oh my God. I tried so hard not to write it. This was supposed to come out in March. And I was like, no.
Ever the procrastinator.
I was so behind. And I was editing the movie, too. I was in post-production on the film, and I thought, for sure I can do post-production on my first feature and write my first book at the same time. Why wouldn't I? No, you can't do that. So we're like 2 seasons later, I guess a full book season later than...
Well, you can say that, but you write in your book that you were doing other things, too. Did you not do 2 screenplays?
I wrote 2 scripts.
So you could write
instead
and do
of
the movie
book.
At the same time.
Yeah. Someone asked me recently, they're like, do you have a writing schedule? Because you're really fast. I'm like, no, it's like because I had something else to do that I didn't want to do.
Mm-hmm.
But so I do feel at least positive that energy went into other work instead of just being like staring at the ceiling, which also happens a lot.
And you need that deadline because the best work is the night before.
It's true. So the book, I knew it would be difficult and I didn't want to do it. And it's a very lonely thing. It's all writing is lonely, but if you're writing a movie, you at least, in my case, have actors in mind. Like you can hear other voices. Other voices are touching it, whether they're in the room with you or not. But this is just you creating content out of your dumb brain and hoping for the best. And I remember one day I would just be like, okay, this is gonna be our writing schedule. We're gonna do this, and I'll just go for a walk. I remember one day basically screaming at myself, only you can end this. There is no way out. It's through. That's it. You have to do it. There's no way around it. No one's going to save you. No one is going to write it for you. You have to do it. So I don't know why you're putting yourself through this.
This book is just so fully formed and perfect. I've known you for years, and I was surprised by some of the things that I read.
Well, that's good.
Surprised in a really good way, but surprised in how vulnerable and how willing to talk about things that I've never heard you speak about in my life. It just made me feel really close to you and proud of you, and just I just know everybody who reads this book is going to love it.
Well, that's nice. I mean, so when we had the meeting about the book, it was a lot more specific to Halifax and the scene here, and it was just very local. And I was like, if you're not from here, why would you care to read what I have to say? I want it to be broad. I want it to be about pop culture, and then the things that are specific to me, they're threaded into larger subjects.
Any writer who's writing a book of essays, those essays need to touch people who don't know them, who aren't local, who don't know your story. And I think that your book does that really, really well. You have pop culture part of the book, and then you have your personal music part of the book, and then more local sort of things that have happened, rage-inducing events. And that. But going to the pop culture side, because there's so much you could talk about. You and I would just talk about it for hours.
Yeah.
How did you narrow it down?
I just sort of went to my old dependables, like A League of Their Own and Thelma and Louise. Those are two of my favorite movies of all time. Tori Amos and Alanis Morissette, those are my bedrock artists. No matter what they do, I'll always listen. Do I listen to them every day? No. But they were formative. Jodie Foster, formative. Was a fan, and I didn't really know why for a long time, you know what I mean? And yeah, I think it was sort of what did I have the most to say about? Because I have a lot of opinions on all kinds of pop culture, but it's what do you have, 1,000 to 2,000 words to talk about, which isn't everything. Amy Sherman Palladino was actually one of the late ones in the collection, but Mrs. Maisel, I think, was on at the time, and I was like, yeah, let's talk about that. There's so much to love about her shows and so much that's problematic.
She's the creator of Gilmore Girls.
Bunheads. Marvelous Mrs. Maisel. I kind of want to do that, read that essay, but as a TED Talk with some photographic evidence and clips and stuff.
Yeah, the terrible men she loves.
Yeah,
why
it's
these
all
characters?
the heroines look the same.
Mm-hmm.
There are no gay people in these towns.
Not overtly.
No. Yeah, so it's just sort of stuff that I loved and that has stuck with me to have a deep opinion on it. Really, kind of old school, thorny thumbs ups that I wrote about.
So have you watched the new League of Your Own then?
Yes.
Do you approve?
I do approve, and I did not mention it. So that was in development when I was writing about the movie, which is one of my favorite movies of all time. And I was worried about it because there have been no good reboots R.I.P. Gilmore Girls. You and I have talked about that at great length.
We don't have to hate on Gilmore Girls, though, because I'm just happy it existed. I don't care.
The reboot? No.
Yeah.
I feel like the reboot tainted the show retroactively.
I mean, maybe slightly, but...
It was so bad.
You know me. I cannot let go of things. So,
I can't either, but I'm just like, it didn't have to happen.
I'm still watching Grey's Anatomy. I'm on season 17, and I will be there till she dies of old age.
Yeah.
Till she dies of old age, because she's never going to leave the show either. She finally got her payday.
Yeah, but she's a producer. She's made money hand over fist. Don't worry about old Ellen Pompeo.
I worry about her a little bit. Some of the things she says online, I worry about her.
She's fine. But yeah, they give her on the TV show. So the one thing I wasn't worried about was that Abby Jacobson was the creator. Love Broad City, obviously, and I just felt good about it. She had come out as bisexual, and I knew the show would be gay. And everybody she assembled was like a cool alt comedian. And Nick Offerman was playing the Jimmy Dugan part, which turned out to be kind of much ado about nothing, which was interesting.
Yeah, I was just kind of a little
It was
surprised.
good. They just got rid of him. It was smart. You're like, actually, because, you know.
Spoiler alert.
Yeah.
They got rid of him? Okay.
He's not dead. He just, like, leaves. He's only in a few episodes. And I was like, oh, that's why you weren't promoting him at all. They make it about the women. And I was talking to my friend Rebecca in my band, who also loves A League of Their Own. And she's like, it actually made me mad at the movie for not being gayer.
Yeah.
And I was like, but it was 1991, and two men wrote it. And a straight woman directed
about
it.
that in the book.
Yeah.
That Rosie O'Donnell then later says.
Yeah. That she was playing it gay.
But she was closeted at the time.
She was. And, like, you can't tell. Like, oh, you ripped up a picture of a man? That just says to me, I'm a feminist. It doesn't say I'm a lover of ladies.
I mean, and you could argue everything she played was played gay.
Yeah.
Because how could you not?
Yeah.
They're Rosie. That's just part of you. But also, one of the people who were actually in the baseball team, who League of Their Own is based on, one of the actual baseball players came out, finally. And she's what, like 70?
90. They're going to kill that old lesbian. They are. Maybelle Blair, her name is. And they've been trotting her out at all the events. I'm like, I don't think she should be traveling this much. Anyway, congrats, Maybelle.
But yeah, so anyway, that was a little bit of a tangent. So coming back to the book and working with Stephanie Domet was...
Oh, incredible. I mean, Steph was my first editor at the Coast when I was 20 years old. So here I was at like 41 or whatever, with her still being my editor and still being really tough, but really supportive and encouraging. And as I said off the top, it was half the reason I said yes. Because when I got the email, so it came in the wake of getting fired, and it said like Nimbus, and then you can see like the first line in Gmail, and it said something like, would you be interested in, and I was like, editing a book? No. That's what I thought it was. Her just like trying to throw me some work, like to make up for my giant income loss. And then I opened it and I was like, oh, actually, yeah.
I could do this.
Yeah.
Far from now.
With her involved. Yes.
Okay, so paint the picture. It's 2020.
Yeah.
You've just sitting there making a joke.
Yeah. So it was August.
It was hot. Okay.
It was hot. I was working from home, and the premier, they were doing those daily COVID briefings, the premier and Dr. Strang, and he announced that he was quitting. Like his term was going to be up, but he was exiting. And one of the tweets said that one of the reasons he was quitting was because it was hard for his family to read all the negative things about him. And his son used to be my downstairs neighbor. So I've had a succession of single lady downstairs neighbors. I'm the single lady upstairs neighbor. So this was her boyfriend, and he had moved in. And
she wrote a tweet.
And I retweeted poor Natasha Pace, who's a reporter. I retweeted her tweet and said, it was hard for me to listen to his son bang my downstairs neighbor.
Yeah, that was hard.
The same
was
way
the hard part.
Every night. Life is hard. That's what I said. And so I did it. And I did kind of go, is this too much? And someone from CBC in a different province called me and was like, I just want you to know how funny, like, I love your tweet. And I was like, do you think if I got fired, we could say it's heat stroke? Like,
Can I get a doctor's note?
Yeah, like something in me knew. That was a Thursday at noon. By Friday morning, it had gotten traction from a liberal toady, who I will not name because I will not give him the press, on Facebook. And so all of these people who, with brand new Twitter accounts, they were like bombarding CBC to fire me. But I didn't know that. I had a meeting at 10 a.m. And when I got home at like noon, I had an email from the acting producer. Like, by the way, when people go on vacation in the summer and you're filling in for them, you're not supposed to deal with problems.
Sorry.
Yeah, so I feel bad. I still feel bad about that. But he emailed me and said, we got a call about your tweet. This lady said, blah, blah, blah. Can you take it down? He asked in a ginger way because
there was no policy.
They don't own me.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I called him because I was instantly mad that he asked at all. And I called him and I was like a bit defensive. And he's like, yeah, well, we've gotten another call. And this lady said, I don't want Tara Thorne to get fired, but. And I was like, no one makes a call and says, I don't want this, but they want it. Like that is what you want.
Who makes calls anyway?
Yeah. At the end of that phone call, the producer said, Ken, who is the guy who runs the station, Ken's looking into the freelancer code of conduct. And then by the end of the day, I was talking to someone in Montreal who had never heard of me and was very mad at me. And then they left me hanging all weekend and they fired me on Monday afternoon. And I mean, there's a lot more to talk about, but
it's in the book.
It is in the book. But I will say that that was a horrible week, obviously. I made a record that week. I was already booked. So I was happy to have that to do. But the other thing that happened was because it was so public, people were like, oh, she's going to die. They threw work at me. And then, I got this book, I got my own podcast, and the movie had already been funded, and they announced it a week after I got fired. So I actually, it was actually the best thing to have ever happened to me, which feels like a shitty thing to say because I really loved the job and I really love the people and I love working there. And I would have done it until I aged out. But yeah, apparently I needed to go. I wouldn't not have chosen that exit.
I mean, who would?
Yeah, like I don't sit here and go, my tweet was on the up and up and I'm glad I did it. Like, no.
So do you have any advice for people who are now in the position that you felt you were? Things were stale, not going anywhere. You were stuck.
No, because I wouldn't take life advice from me. I have never made good money. I currently don't have a job and I'm panicking every day of my life because the podcast is now over too. So everything that started is now ended. But the weird thing is, I will say taking a risk or being pushed to take a risk has always paid off. But I wouldn't
say that with a face, though.
I know, I do, because like I wouldn't actively choose it because I'm in this period right now. Like I literally don't have a steady income. Like nothing. I'm literally like, I think I'll get a seasonal mall job. I think I'd like that. I want to work at Hickory Farms. I love cheese. I could sell that.
I think so. I feel like we've talked about Hickory Farms before.
Yeah. So I don't feel positive, but everyone says, well, it always works out. And it's like, yeah, I haven't died yet. It does work out. But so, the in-between period is very stressful.
We need you to buy this book. She literally needs you to buy this book. No, I'm just joking.
I do also think now I'd probably be more willing, I hope this is true, and not just me talking on a podcast, just more willing to like go after what I want and say what I want and tell people how I feel and all that stuff. So I think you could do that.
And you're in your 40s now. This is the time.
Yeah.
New era of Tara. I like that. That should be in your book.
Reprint.
How did working for an alt weekly sort of shape your voice, your writing voice?
It shaped everything. People loved to hate the Coast people. We know this. We were hated. But they also love to love them. Like you could craft a persona around being an alt weekly writer, which is like, if you told a TikToker that today, they'd be like, what are these words? Alt weekly writer. Alt weeklies are now dead. It's a huge loss. It's going to hurt. It's going to hurt the culture. It's going to hurt people locally. People are going to have a harder time getting their shit out there. Thank God for power polls and posters, I guess. Like, I don't know how people find out about stuff anymore. My favorite thing to do is to put a local person on the cover and be like, this person's awesome. Here's 2,000 words about how awesome they are and like a magazine quality photo shoot. All that is lost. And I think that's really sad. So yeah, it shaped everything. And it certainly shaped the persona of being snarky. Because that's the kind of that's the alt-weekly voice. And that's not really there anymore either, because advertising became so important that you had to dial all that back. Like, the Best of Halifax used to also have a Worst of Halifax in the
Which
old
is what
days.
you want to use. Yeah, you want to read that. Yeah.
So yeah, it's been fundamental, and all of whatever happened personally at the paper is neither here nor there.
It's in the book.
It's in the book, but it's like separate from the work, and it's separate from the person that it made me into, and like whatever negativity I hold toward the coast, it made me the person I am, and I'm forever grateful to have had that chance. And everything that I have in my life now is because I was there. You know,
You specifically say in the book that you don't read.
that's right.
You used to read, though.
Yeah.
So when's the last time you read a book that actually meant something to you? What was that book?
I'm reading a book right now.
What?
Believe it or not. It's called Spike, Mike, Slackers, and Dykes. And it's by John Pearson, who is like a key figure in 90s film distribution. Don't roll your eyes at me. I know you're thinking it. But like, Spike is Spike Lee. Mike is Michael Moore. Slackers is Richard Linklater, who's my filmmaking hero. And Dykes is Rose Trochet, who made a film called Go Fish. So it was like the hallmark of 90s independent cinema, which I would love to be a part of. And I unfortunately have missed the boat by 20 years. I was also in high school, in my defense.
Sliding doors.
Yeah, very sliding doors. So yeah, I'm reading about it. And like, as someone with a movie on the festival circuit, and I'm frustrated with where it is and where it hasn't gone, I'm just like, I'm like devouring this book because he was doing all these things. Now, granted, there were studios and millions of dollars involved in some instances, but, you know, he's got all his like deal memos and all his little negotiations, and he talks about being at Sundance and all the offers on the table. So it's meaning a lot to me, just like where I am in my life with an actual movie on the festival circuit, which is a very rarefied situation. And then the last book I read before that is called Monoculture by Sue Goyette. It's her new collection of poetry about trees. And I mean, Sue wrote the poems in compulsus. She's like one of the best writers and people I've ever met in my life. And reading her poetry feels like a gift you don't deserve, or something. Like how am I allowed to look at this? Like, this should be for VIPs only. and that they're putting it out on November 3rd at the bus stop, and it's a Gaspro book, so you know it's nice. They have those covers that are
so
nice
pretty.
to touch.
Yeah.
It really made me think. I was like, this is a whole book about trees. How?
But it works.
It works. It's amazing. It's like every thought you've ever had a tree is in monoculture.
I'd be curious to hear that pitch.
Yeah.
But you wrote the poems in compulsus.
She did.
How did that go? Were you just like, do whatever you want?
Kind of. I gave her the script. Well, okay, so the story is, we were at Steph Demet's house, actually, for a Christmas party, and I had been at the back of the house, and I was leaving, and Sue was at the front of the house, and I was drunk, and I was like, oh my God, Sue! And I was writing the movie. I was in a workshop, and I was writing the movie, and I had to finish it by January 4th. So this was just before Christmas. And I hugged her, and I was like, okay, I read this movie, and the protagonist is a poet, and I need your help. And she said, okay. And I think she thought I was just going to, like, use her as a consultant.
You're like, okay, when can I see those poems?
Yeah. So I was like, so I had these earmarks. There's like a poem that opens the movie, there's a poem in the middle, and there's one that ends it. And I had them just like spaces left in the script. And so I gave her the script, and she said yes. And then, yeah, we had one coffee, and she just asked me a bunch of questions about Wally, who's the lead character, like about her background, which I'd never thought of. And she said, don't think about it, just answer. And so, you know, she just wanted to know, like, you know, what things in her life would make her choose certain words or have certain thoughts. And it's like really amazing. And people try to credit me, and I like am constantly dispelling the idea that I wrote the poems, even though Sue has a card like in the credits.
Yeah.
Like,
I saw that.
huge.
I was like, ooh.
Yeah.
That's why they were so good.
That's right. I mean, I could have done it. They would not have been as good. But yeah, it was amazing. And, you know, she didn't have to say yes. And I'm just so grateful she did. And we did pay her, by the way. It wasn't just like,
I didn't want to ask.
Give me some poems.
I'm just joking. After all this talk about needing to pay for words, Tara Thorne's over here asking for free poetry. Just joking. She paid.
We did.
All right. So you have an excerpt to read for us. Introduce your excerpt.
Okay. It's called Lunks I Love for Real. Because, you know, I am not a fan of men in general. but there's a certain type of man. There's a handful of movie stars that I just really love, and I'll go see anything they're in. So I'm not going to read the whole thing because that's too many. I'm just going to read you like 2 pages.
Okay, some of the lunks she loves.
Just one. There's an intro, and then I'll just read one.
Okay. Okay, here we go.
Well, no, I'll do 2 because I just rewatched Girls, and Adam Driver's one of them. Okay. America has a lot of problems, and one of the biggest ones going unaddressed, in my opinion, is that there are no good male movie stars. This is partly because, as previously mentioned, the Hollywood star system has collapsed in favor of franchises. The A-list men of 1985 to 2010, Brad Pitt, Will Smith, and Tom Cruise, are of course still working and remain big stars to an undiscerning middle America. Michael Keaton, Michael Douglas, and Kevin Costner have been largely relegated to minor comic book movie parts. George Clooney mostly directs bland features we stopped getting excited about. They're all still kicking around. Those franchises do need a lot of people to be in them, and most of those people happen to be generic and boring, which is just a statistics issue. Everyone can't be Florence Pugh or Gal Gadot. 4 of the men in the most popular franchises are actually blondes named Chris. There's Evans, high school football coach, Pratt, church dork, Pine, hot dad with no kids, and Hemsworth, Australian, the best one. Each of them has a stake in the Marvel Universe, except for Pine, a DC guy who also led the Star Trek movies reboot. They're all fine, that is to say, toned and serviceable and unremarkable. I don't go to the movies for men anyway, but it may surprise you to learn that there are a few I love, a few shining stars that rise above the porridge of superheroes and spaceships to be beacons of surprise, humor, and charm. And they're not the skinny, hot yoga man bun types you'd probably expect me to be into considering the rest of my life. Every last one of them is a jacked up, greased out, core blasting lunk. Definition: a tall, brawny man, especially a sexually attractive one. Less kind definition, a stupid man. These are my favorite lunks. 1. Zac Efron. Zac Efron is a star in the golden Hollywood era model, a triple threat who can act, sing, and dance. Zac Efron is Fred Astaire, he's Clark Gable, he's Cary Grant. I am not kidding. First of all, he's absolutely beautiful. Second of all, he came out of the Disney television system, which is famously rigid and not geared towards, shall we say, a nuanced performance style. See him execute a beautiful song and dance duet with fellow Disney alum Zendaya in The Greatest Showman. Apparently, he also came out of it with a drug problem, which he has recovered from and put that energy into intense self-improvement. He's better funny than dramatic, but he can do it all. I will see any and all Zac Efron performances. Favorite Zac movie? The comedy Neighbors, in which he plays the king of the frat boys at war with young parents. 2. Adam Driver. Driver, like Mark Ruffalo before him, comes from indie roots, and like Ruffalo after him, he pivoted into a huge studio franchise. I hate that. But I love Adam Driver, a giant ex-Navy man who was once the subject of a New York Magazine story about a play he was in, headlined, "How Big is Adam Driver in Burn This?" Driver became next-tier famous because of Star Wars, which I will not be addressing, but he got that part because of his 6 seasons on Girls. That's a typo that I put in this book. It's actually 6. Since we can't let Lena Dunham have anything, I will be the one to thank her. When he arrived in the first season, he hadn't grown into his face yet. He was just this weird topless man who very much sucked. Over the years, he became one of the show's key draws, using his physicality, bizarre in a good way, acting choices, and theater-honed skills to create a deep, multidimensional portrait of a former fuckboy. He supplements Star Wars and Burberry ads with weird indies and prestige studio pictures of all stripes, and even when it doesn't work, talking to you, House of Gucci, it's always interesting. Favorite Adam movie? Patterson, the least lunkiest, a quiet Jim Jarmusch character study about a bus driver who writes poetry.
Snaps. Okay, but no, my favorite Zac Efron movie is the one where he switches places because I love a switcheroo.
17 again?
Yeah, 17
oh my
again.
God.
Oh
with
my
Matthew
God.
Perry. Matthew Perry wishes.
He just did a book too, Matthew Perry.
Yeah, he did.
I'm curious to know what the big thing is. What it's just drug issues?
Yeah, I think it was drugs.
Just say that on the cover, Matt.
Yeah, we know. We already know.
We already know. And poor Zach, stuff has happened to him.
Messed up his face. Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you believe that story?
A little, maybe.
I don't know why he would get plastic surgery otherwise.
I don't think so. I think something health-wise is going on with a lot of people. But
can I tell you a theory?
Yes.
That maybe we can come back to this if it turns out to be true. All of these people that are doing superhero movies are fully doing steroids.
Yes. 100%.
And we're not talking about it. And it's going to make them very ill later in life. Like, I feel like there'll be a swath of these Marvel people that all get sick and die.
And they don't stay in shape like that forever.
No,
it's
can't.
the on and off, which is not good for your health too. But Zac Efron and who was it? There was another superhero guy, one of the Chris's maybe, who just talked about how unhealthy it is to stay in shape and like how messed up it is that. I think it's cool that we're finally talking about it. Like, it's just like, we're always like, oh, look at these abs. But now it's like, no, this is actually killing me.
I don't know why they would do it. Like, they have special effects. There's so many special effects. They have a suit. Build it into the suit. You don't need this. Like, I remember Ben Affleck nearly killed himself for Batman. He had one topless scene. I'm like, was that worth it? I don't think so.
And who is this for? Because I, don't need it.
Kumail Nanjiani? What happened there?
I think it's just for other men. The men are like, hey, these are abs.
Yeah.
Women love this. We're like,
I always go, was this worth it? Was this movie worth it? The movies are almost always bad, so I don't think so.
Okay, favorite Adam Driver movie for me was Marriage Story, I think. Is that what it's called?
Oh, yeah. That's a tough one, though.
It is tough.
It's hard to like.
I mean,
I'm very excited about
he's
this.
Horrible, but,
he's horrible.
But he does such a good job.
I'm excited about this Don DeLillo movie that's coming out.
Which is this one?
It's called White Noise, and Greta Gerwig plays his wife.
The book. White Noise, the book.
Yeah, Greta's coming out of acting retirement.
She retired?
Well, kind of. She made Little Women and she made Lady Bird. She's been directing.
She's been directing, but she's going to act.
Her partner, Noah Baumbach, directed this.
God love the partners. Right?
I know.
Amy Sherman Palladino, as we talk about that. No, we don't. We can't talk about anything else. We're done.
We're done.
This was wonderful. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I'm sorry I didn't cry. I really planned to.
All right, listen, I'm just going to punch her until she cries. Thank you so much. And Low Road Forever by Tara Thorne. Available now, today, everywhere books are sold. So please buy it.
Please. Please.
Please buy it. And thank you for listening and hanging out with us. Join me next time on this book lover's journey as we try to read more, read Canadian, read local. You know, all the good things.